All right. Well, I'm Taylor McKay-Bianchi. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see your faces today, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today to celebrate our Celia B. Godsil Grants in Place Fellows and learn a little bit about their projects. So I'm excited to kick us off. I think we'll probably still have a few folks here trickling in, but I'll go ahead and begin with some introductions and thank yous. So as I said, my name is Taylor McKay-Bianchi, and I'm the Executive Director here at Rural Schools Collaborative. I'm joined in facilitation today by Leslie Cook from Teton Science Schools, as well as my colleague Savannah Franklin, who manages our Grants in Place program and has done an excellent job of supporting our fellows throughout their projects. So it's great to see so many of you here today. For those of you who are new to Rural Schools Collaborative's work, I wanted to just take a minute to share a little bit about the Grants in Place project. So the Grants in Place program is funded through the generous support of Celia and Mark Godsil in honor of Celia's career as a public school teacher and their belief in the importance of the teachers to their rural communities. So I think I saw Celia on here as well. Welcome, Celia. Would you like to say a word or two before we get started?
Actually, I would just like to say thank you to all the participants and all of the hard work that you have done and the places you've been and the students that you've touched and will continue to influence for the rest of your lives, because we know that once that influence is there, it carries through with them forever. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Celia. We're so honored to have you here with us today, and thank you so much for your support of these fellows and their projects. We're really excited to learn more about what they found in the last year. I also wanted to give just a couple of welcomes to some additional folks. I know we have some Rural Schools Collaborative board members who are joining today. The Rural Schools Collaborative team is joining today, so thank you to those VIPs who have been such great cheerleaders for this project as well. And I also want to give a special thanks to our Grants in Place fellows. We've been in close connection with you all throughout this year. But just to echo what Celia said, the work that you all are doing with your kids in their classrooms is really what gets our team out of bed every day. So we're really excited to learn more about your place-based initiatives, hear a little bit how those went, and really celebrate and honor the work that you've done today. So I think without further ado, I know we've got a pretty full agenda, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Leslie Cook just to tell us a little bit about the game plan for today, and also a special welcome to friends and family who are joining today. We're so excited to have you all here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. And thank you all for being here with us today. My name is Leslie Cook. I'm from Teton Science Schools, and I'm so honored to get to help facilitate the celebrations of learning today. So I just want to share briefly with you the agenda. It's up on the screen right now. We are about to dive into presentations by each fellow. Each fellow will have about 4 minutes to present and share about what they did over the course of this year and how it had an impact on their place and their students and community. After that, we'll close out for guests with us, and then we'll take a quick break, and just the fellows will stay on to have a little bit of reflection and close out of their experience in the year. So that is where we're headed. I wanted to say just briefly that we asked each fellow to share and introduce a little bit about themselves, their school, their place and community, to talk about their project, and then, as I said, how their project has an impact on their students and or the community. We asked each fellow to share for about 4 minutes, so they'll have that, and we're going to save questions for the end, out loud questions, and we encourage you to use the chat. If you have a question that you're really curious to ask the presenter, feel free to add it to the chat, and then they can respond after their presentation in the chat as well. So I think with those couple of words of briefing, I'm going to invite Camille, Dudrey, and Dylan Bear up as our first presenters.
All right, good afternoon, y'all. So I'm Dylan Bear. I'm going to take the introduction section for us. If you look at this slide, you can see this is Dudrey on the bottom left. We did a fuel reduction project our local ski resort and on the national forest. So as you can see here, next to the guy in the yellow coat, and then I'm Dylan Bear. I'm on the top of the sign waving. So the fuel reduction project was between her class and mine. So I'm a PE teacher. I have a life sports class, which is upperclassmen. It's an elective class. And then she had her probability and statistics class, which is a math class. We kind of collaborated together to do this fuel reduction project. And she's going to take it from there. So thanks for having us. Oh, yeah. And I also want to say thank you, Celia, for giving us this opportunity, and Savannah and Leslie and all the fellows for the collaboration. It was an honor just to get to do this project. The kids loved it. We loved it. And we'll tell you more. So thank you.
Okay, Leslie, can you hit the next slide? Or whoever's in charge, I guess, hit the next slide. Thanks. So our project, as Dylan said, was about fuel reduction. We live in Pinedale, Pinedale, Wyoming. It's about an hour and a half south of Jackson. Super rural, a lot of mountains. We have one volunteer fire department, and we were affected by 2 fires pretty recently. We had a huge one in Hoback that actually drove a lot of kids out of their homes, and then we had one at our ski resort. So we were kind of wondering about how we could impact our community and help prevent and protect our forests from fires. So as you can see, we did some hypotheses. So I had kids research different fires around the nation, and they decided what type of fires we were most prone to in Pinedale. Some looked in Arizona. That's a bit different than what we have up in Pinedale. They looked in California, again, different. They looked all over, and kind of hypothesized about how we should protect our forest. Dylan and his class did a red card test. For those of you who don't know, it's what the Forest Service does for people to fight fires. They have to walk a certain amount with a certain amount of weight in a certain amount of time. They have to do push-ups, sit up, like the whole thing. They have to get in a blanket and see if they can get all sealed up. It's like a hot potato thing. So they did a full red card test, and then they estimated how much energy is expended on a crew that is fighting a fire, like in the fire. So from there we went and we tested it. So we actually went up to the fire, or to White Pine, which is our ski area, and we reduced the fuel. We went up and we cleared debris. We looked at fuel ladders. We looked at all that, and there we guessed how many steps we would take and how much energy we would expend during that not being actually on a fire, so a bit more relaxed. And the other class went and looked at what fuel reduction was being done in the mountain as well. So we looked at some logging, we looked at some clearing of debris for burn piles, and we had some Forest Service members come to do that, as well as our fire chief came and talked to us. And then we concluded, we decided, what could we do? What we did end up deciding is that if we can prevent them, then you have less expenditure. You're obviously saving more forest, and that they can do it themselves when they're up in the mountain. It doesn't take much effort to clear the area you're in and reduce fuels. And they decided how they were going to support the fuel reduction that's already being done in Pinedale, as well as starting their own type of fuel reduction with that. Dylan? Next slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to pop it up.
Okay.
Okay, cool. As far as the impact goes, the students, like I said before, they enjoyed it. They enjoyed it in the PE class and in the probability statistics class, getting to hear from different people and try different lessons, learning what a red card, like a physical aptitude test, would be like, having guest speakers come in and talk about it, because they get to see in this high impact zone, like going up to the ski resort, all these slash piles. They get to see the old burn scars and just wondering, like, what actually happens when all that, what does happen to make that happen, to reduce those fuels. So they got to see in the one day that we worked, I mean, we bought gloves with the money and some saws so we could help reduce the fuels, and we walked up to the ski hill. We used pedometers, and the kids got 91 miles of, as a group, 91 miles of steps. just in the day that we were up there, just like a school day. We had lunch for them, and we got to clear off 3 trails at the ski resort. So the kids were excited during the ski season. Some ski coaches as well, they got to like, oh, I helped clear that off. And we got all the ladder fuels from the ski runs all the way up to the edge of the trees and into the trees where there's some tree runs. So like clearing the branches up to head height. So the ladder fuels really is just like getting, if the fire were to come through, you're clearing the top of the trees out down to like head height. So you can bring the fire down from the trees down to the ground, and then they can fight it on the ground by doing a hand crew. And we kind of just explained that to them, and then got to do that. Talking with the different Forest Service was fun for them to see the different jobs, and that's something that's valuable for them to see, like what other jobs are there available for if I wanted to go into this industry. As far as the community goes, let me see, I'm trying to pop up this picture real quick. Yeah, reducing the fuel in a high impact, yeah, the ski resort, it's probably one of the main attractions in our area. There's only 2,000 people in our town, and then about 8,000 people in farms and around. So this is like a big winter activity spot. So kind of a popular place to go. So they got to give back and invest in one of their favorite places. And then, yeah, that's about, it was good. It was just overall positive. And if you look at the pictures there, you'll see some kids. It was a super cold day too. So we went up there, it's still kind of snow on the ground. That's why we ended up doing ours early, just because we wanted to get up there before the snow hit, and then we wouldn't be able to get back up there until like summertime. So we went up early and did that. There were some old projects that they had, like some picnic tables that they built into some different terrain features. And then what else did we get? Appreciation for the forest. Yeah, just as far as driving around, when you drive up through Pinedale's like right at the foot of the Wind Rivers. And so they just got to see what a clean forest looks like versus where they haven't done fuel reductions. And so they got to kind of get a different perspective on the landscape of, we helped clear this up, the Forest Service helped clear that up, and what could be cleared up in the future. So it's overall a great project. So thanks again.
Awesome. Camille and Dylan, thank you so much for sharing about your project. That's really exciting to hear about the bioreduction work and how active the students were in the project and in the community. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll save questions for the end, I guess. So
yeah, and feel free to add questions to the chat if you have them. And we'll share and do celebrations and a little out loud clapping for everyone at the end too. So for now, Dylan and Camille, thank you.
Yeah,
and
thank you guys.
Yeah. And we'll transition next to Abigail Parker from Wisconsin.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Abigail, and I am a kindergarten teacher in central Wisconsin. So I tell people that if you take a map of Wisconsin and take a dart and hit a bullseye, you probably hit my town. So we made a pollinator garden. So that was our project. So here, let me see if I can take these out. Would that work better? Can you hear me better now? Okay. Okay. So this is our pollinator garden. So if we go to the next slide, it will show the before and after. Okay, so this is what we started off with. We started off with 4 fruit trees. And then we knew that we wanted to add some sort of garden to our school. And so over here is the after. So we were able to get around 82 plants and plant them in. First, obviously, we had to kill the grass. We had to treat it. So then we would be able to have our plants grow. And actually just a couple of days ago, I had checked our garden and the plants are flourishing. And I did see some birds in our bird feeders. And so that's just, it's awesome. The kids were involved. They helped me pull up clumps of grass, which was entertaining and fun. They were part of the planning process of, well, what are we going to do? What is this going to be? What is it going to look like? So they're little kindergartners, so it's a little tricky, but we made it work. And then once the plants came in, some of my colleagues and I we went out and dug the holes, and then the kids came out later and then put the plants in the ground. That was the ultimate goal, was for them to put the plants in the ground. I didn't want to do that. I want that to be them. So in 10 years from now, they can say that I did that. And then we have a free little library for books, just because we want to try to we wanted to figure out how to get more books into our community, into our kids' hands, and this was an easy access point. And then this summer, super exciting, I live a little ways from the school, so we were able to get people from the community to volunteer to take care of the garden. So I kind of took a step back. I got the garden all ready for them. I have a bucket out there with directions and how to water, but they're in charge of watering and weeding. So that was kind of the pull-in of how to get the community involved as well. And so we kind of hope this is a stepping stone, and we can keep moving forward, maybe at some point enlarge it, because we have planted more fruit trees. If you go to the next slide, I think there's one more. So like I said, it's kind of dream come true. I had never, before being a teacher, I always thought it'd be cool to have kids in a garden. You don't necessarily think of you always think of students in a classroom, but I wanted to see if we could branch out. So here, our kindergartners and fifth graders. So it wasn't just about my class, it was about all of the classes in my school. So we were able to all get out and plant. So this picture just brings a smile to my face, because it's a literal dream come true. So, and there might be one more slide after this. So like I said, here is our garden, here's our library, and then here is our bird feeder with a bird that I had cut out. I was actually in the middle of watering, and I saw this bird appear, which was super cool to just see it. It's not pictured in these, but I have a DNR. I was able to go through the DNR through Wisconsin to get a snapshot camera. So I actually have a trail camera out in our garden that's able to take motion censored pictures. I haven't checked it in a little bit, but I'm hoping to be able to capture some of these birds and pollinators that have come to our garden so far, so I can be able to show our students this fall. So I just wanted to thank everyone that made this possible, because without the funding, it would have been a long shot. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Abigail, thank you so much. It's exciting to hear you speak with such passion about the project, and especially getting the cross grade level collaboration. That's great to hear. It looks like there's a question or two coming in for you in the chat. And we'll transition next to Brandon Renfroe from Alabama. Brandon.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. My camera is not working for some reason. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful. If you just see a black screen, I apologize. I've tried to restart. I'm just not having any luck there. But you just picture an ugly guy from Alabama, and you'll have the general gist of what you would be seeing. So our project, you see the title, Saving the Little River. I wanted to start by thanking Ms. Godsil, the Rural Schools Collaborative, because I know that we're trying to quantify our results today with these presentations, but there's really no way to quantify the impact that this grant had on my students, being able to go outside, do hands-on investigations, actually being able to get their hands dirty, in this case, get their hands wet doing these tests. Some of them had never done field work in a science class. And so this was just truly an amazing opportunity for them. And I wanted to thank you personally. I know we all are so thankful for this opportunity. So if you can move to the next slide, if you would. This is the Little River. The Little River Canyon's been called Alabama's most dramatically beautiful physiographic feature. It's notable for its little river, and it's the only river in the United States that forms and flows almost entirely on top of a mountain. 30 years ago, it was October, I think, of 1992, thousands of acres along the western rim of the canyon became Alabama's first national preserve. But across the canyon, unsecured property along the eastern rim. They kind of made a gaffe there. They didn't secure the property across the canyon. And so it's become the site of development by private landowners. They're even this beautiful, pristine place, but along the eastern rim, you can actually see houses that have been built along the canyon's very edge. And according to the executive director of the DeKalb County Tourist Association, we run the risk of taking one of the cleanest, purest waters in the world and seeing pollution becoming a problem. So our proposal was to protect and hopefully save Little River from the detrimental effects of pollution. And specifically, we started by doing some water quality monitoring. I think if you look at the next slide, please, you'll see some of our students there with one of their kids, because our strategy to address the problem was twofold. First thing we wanted to do was to conduct water quality testing at various sites across the canyon. And so we were able, with our grant funds, to purchase several kits that we could use. And among other variables, we tested for dissolved oxygen. We tested pH, nitrates, nitrogen, phosphates, specifically looking for eutrophication levels with nitrates and phosphates. And then we took our results and we compared those levels to accepted norms. And so that gave the kids a chance to, learn about what qualities does clean water possess? What are the parameters? And we were able, like a scientist, to go through the scientific method. We formed our hypotheses and we tested them. We were actually able to get out in the field and test our hypotheses, collected our data, which we'll talk about just momentarily. And then we were able to actually share our results with school leaders. And we're still in the process of sharing these results. If you have the next slide, please. You'll see one of my students there is very excited about sharing his results, smiling there for the camera. But we encouraged the use of best practices. That's really what we're trying to promote, especially in terms of the construction that's been done. We may not be able to stop the construction there on the eastern rim, but we can surely encourage and promote best practices so Little River doesn't suffer any ill effects. And so what did we see? What did we see with our testing? Well, there were differences between the eastern and the western rims, between the protected and the unprotected. So especially in terms of nitrates and phosphates. But fortunately, though, both of them were still within satisfactory ranges. But what I wanted to say was this, because we're going to continue to test. Because by participating in this project, students learn firsthand not only the measurable traits of water, but also their immeasurable place as lifelong stewards of the environment. And because of the generous grant from the Rural Schools Collaborative, we hope to, our plan is, we have a little club called the River Keepers. We hope to continue to monitor the Little River Canyon for years to come. And one of the things that we took away, I'll say this in closing, was that you can make hypotheses and you can have reasons for making those, but the data is what wins the day. We hypothesized that the western rim would be different than the eastern, and it was, but it wasn't statistically significant. So it gave us a chance to talk about how to revise hypotheses, how to account for variations in our data. And really, it was just a great benefit to our kids and something we hope to continue in the years to come. And again, thank you so very much, Ms. Godsil, and to the Rural Schools Collaborative for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Brandon. That's exciting to hear about your students project and getting out, doing field work, monitoring water quality. That's important. Thank you. Next up, I'd like to invite Heather Wright from North Carolina to share.
Hi, I'm Heather Wright. I taught this year in Sylva, North Carolina. At Smoky Mountain High School, I taught 11th and 12th grade AP English and college English. So Sylva is in southwest North Carolina, near Cherokee. And for my dissertation at Virginia Tech was on the ways in which rural English language arts teachers can best support the voices and lived experiences of their rural students. And in rural North Carolina. And I really wanted to see what did that truly look like in the classroom. And I'm very grateful to the Rural Schools Collaborative to be able to really facilitate a project that did that. So my project was Rural Places and Rural Pages, creating and providing place-based children's literature in Western Appalachia. Next slide. So it was really important to me to talk about the rural experiences of my students and what that looked like, especially since the rural place that I grew up in was different from theirs, even though they were both in North Carolina. And so with my senior English classes, I have 2 sections of college senior English. And I wanted them to think about, well, what is your rural story? What does it look like for you, where you're from, your experiences? So we did a couple of different things. What does it mean to be rural? What does it mean to be from the South? Because I see so much teaching the deficit mindset of rurality, the deficit mindset of what it means to be Southern is so pervasive in popular culture, and that trickles down to our students' experiences, right? Like, do I belong in this place because I am this thing? So they did some reflection with visualizations of what are the things that really represent your place. This is from a Cherokee student, the things that were important to him, reflecting on. And the next thing we did, you can go to the next slide, is I wanted students to create their own story about what it means to be from their place. So part of the grant money went to students creating their own stories. So they did a storyboard, we had illustration markers, they had access to whatever online programs they wanted to use, but what's a story that you want to tell about where you're from? And so this is Sophie Goes to Silva that they wrote there. This is from 3 students. You can go to the next one. And they have pictures of the journey and what that looks like there. You can go to the next one. And just places that were really important to them. And then in the next slide, we bought books that were place-based. So they'll go to 4 different elementary schools. They'll all get about 30 books a piece. And so those will be delivered later this summer. And then the next slide, I wanted to end with a quote from Silas House. This is my students and I at graduation. Note to Appalachian young people, you don't have to lose your accent. Flour can be flour. Oil can be 1 syllable. You don't have to take it when people make fun of how you talk. If you choose to change it, that's okay, but know that you don't have to give up that part of yourself. So that was really my motivating discontent in doing this project, was how do I support my students and what does that look like? So thank you.
Heather, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. I grew up in East Tennessee, so what you shared feels familiar for sure. And then again, is important work connecting to place. Thank you. All right, next up is Lisa Wilt from Ohio. Lisa, take it away.
Hi, thanks for having us. So in the town of Ohio, our school district is one of the smallest in the state. I had a comment by this picture with these 2 gentlemen that graduated this year. In the fall, they had made a comment about the previous graduation and the building didn't look nice. So that's where this all started from, was a comment that these 2 made. And I said, what do you guys want to do about it? And then this wonderful grant came upon us. So I said, all right, is this what you guys want to do? They were in for it. So this is where it all started. And this picture on the left, and there'll be a before here in a little bit, but this is just an example of where we started with. Our whole purpose was to make the school around the building look better, and then moving forward, we're going to head out into the community and do the same thing. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So this bench, this is something that this class of mine, as we walked around the building and tried to come up ideas of what do we want to do, how do we make this look more inviting, and show pride in our school. We took this bench that nobody has any idea how long it's been here in front of the building. The best guess was over 20 years. It was kind of falling apart, everything faded. So it was sanded, stripped down, repainted, recoated, and put back up. And my 2 seniors asked that it be moved to a different location, so it was out there for graduation for them, so everybody could see. Next slide, please. This is just example, quite a bit of the money that we used to purchase some equipment, which is very sustainable because it's not just using it now, we can use it for years to come. So we focused on some little things that people might not notice that are really bad, but with what little work it takes and how much better it looks. And this is just an example of edging sidewalks. Something that not a lot of people notice, but once it's done, everybody realizes how nice it looks. So we were able to get to some community members in Uptown on the main street to take care of some of theirs as well. Slide, please. Here's another example of some work we did. If you notice on the right-hand side, we removed these bushes. If you notice on the left, the doors couldn't even open all the way. They've been there for years. You get swarmed with bugs when you walk out of them. People were a little hesitant to the change at first, but now we've had a lot of community members and staff say that how nice it looks. And now we have some new plants in there as well. Slide, please. So this is the sign. On the left, that's what it looked like before. Nobody was taking care of it. Everything was overgrown. There was weeds everywhere. So we just got to work on it. We took some, even what was existing there. I do have some landscaping background. So showed students how to split plants. So you don't even have to purchase more. And then just maintaining it. And it just really cleans it up and makes it look a lot nicer. Slide, please. Another part we were working on is growing, teaching the students how to grow, whether it's vegetables or flowers. And we're a K-12 school, and I'm actually a K-12 teacher, so this was really neat to have my little kids come in the classroom, and I was able to talk to them about what was going on as they walk. That's not why they're up there, but they were really excited to see all of that as well. Next slide, please. Or is that the last one? Can't remember. Okay, so we will continue to maintain everything around the building that we've done. I think we're about out of projects around the school. And then our next step is to keep going into the town of Ohio. I've talked to some council members and some stuff we can do. And then the other part that I'm trying to work with our administrative team is fulfilling those volunteer hours that they need for graduation into with what we do in the community that they could do over the summer. I don't live in town. So some of it is upkeep that needs to happen every year. The other big part that I pushed with this was sometimes our students don't know that it just takes a little bit of effort to make things look better. If you have a shovel out in your shed, you can get a lot of stuff done, or maybe we can ask a neighbor to borrow something. And with a little bit of work, they can really make our community look a lot better. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Lisa. I like that message of a little bit of work can make a big difference. I think your project really showed that for sure. And I'm excited to hear about how it's going to cascade and grow outwards as well. Great work. Thank you. Next up, I'm excited to welcome Andy Felt from California. Andy.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to just start out by thanking the Godsils and the Rural Schools Collaborative because, I've often done things with students, trying to share passion. I like to hike around and explore. And so I've usually taken groups of students just on small day trips. But when I think Haley and Savannah mentioned this opportunity, I was like, why not? So it really gave us the opportunity to take something and grow and expand what we had been doing. And so right, what you're seeing in the picture there, map of California, the yellow dot I tried to squiggle up near the northwest corner is where we're at. And it's very rural. Most of our students are traveling 2 or 3 hours for groceries. And primary, it's really what the coastal range runs north-south. So to get east or west, it's difficult travel. And so, but the funny thing is a lot of our students just, even though they live in that type of an area, they're sitting at home and playing on their phones and they're not experiencing it. And especially as time goes by, it seems to be more prevalent. So I had this group of students, they have the 4 of them there in the picture, and then we have a couple adults. And we want to do a couple things. Our main focus was to get out and see our own area, and then to do research on it, focusing on homesteads, and then to be able to take that information and create a presentation, a slideshow, and also they're working on writing a book about it. And part of that included the homesteads in our area. We're about 3,000 foot elevation. We are right on approaching, as we're the last spot heading east that's habitable land until you get out to the Central Valley, which you can see running through California. And so it was one of the last places to be homesteaded. It was difficult due to distances, sending things to market was tough. So once the homesteads faded away in 1910, most of those places really haven't been inhabited again. And so the sites due to wildfires are disappearing more or less. If you know what you're seeing, you'll notice some of the rock foundations, but if you're just casually walking by, you'll miss it. So we started by doing a lot of research. There's a few books and literature on the area, so we did a lot of that. And they're actually really enjoying that part of it and did some visits. Okay, thank you. On that slide, we found some information, well, quite a bit, an archaeologist had created, and he's been visiting these sites after every wildfire. And so that's his picture on the right-hand side, taken in 1987. And then our photo is on the left. We did just the spring, and you notice we had a second fire come through. And so although the grass is nice and green in our photo, the trees are more or less obliterated in that part of the world. And then the same with a lot of what you could see, any boards or anything left over from homesteading is just gone. But so we went to different sites and documented the changes, trying to, use previous photos just to match up. And so if you could go to the next slide. So the top 2 photos are a direct comparison. The porch coming off of that's known as the Red Mountain House, and it was the stopping point between San Francisco and the North Trinity County. And it was a long, long journey to get between the two. And you'll see the big rock that's kind of helping support the steps is behind the young lady that's standing in the photo to the right. And then some different artifacts that were in the area. In the bottom of the photo, okay, I need to speed up, I'm sorry. So the next slide, please. Kind of, we made it our biggest goal was to get to, it was past that same homestead to a grave that's known by very few people. The gentleman was murdered, you see on the headstone in 1895. And it was extremely rural. And so at this point, very few people know. Someone gave us a rough idea of where it was. And so we did a 7-mile hike kind of on an Easter egg hunt. And, that's when the kids are really having the best time. And we didn't know if we were going to find it. We were kind of succumbing to the heat and distance and finally ran into it. And what I really appreciate at that time, I could see the students really connect with the history. It was no longer reading some things they'd read about. They were seeing the spot, and I could tell they kind of felt the heaviness of this, where it occurred there. So we had a good time. The community's been very involved. We did a community meeting and showed our slides from what we've been doing, and we're still in the writing process, and there's a lot of people helping with that at this point. But I think it's fueled, just younger students are like, well, when do we get to do this? So it's going to be an ongoing thing. And so it was just a great experience. I think there might be one last slide. Oh, nope, there was not a last slide. So that just sums it up. I was really surprised at just how much the kids enjoyed it.
Yeah. Andy, thank you so much. And I think the interdisciplinary connections in what you did, connecting with the science and the cultural history of your place, what a rich project, and getting outside and so active as well. It's exciting to hear about. Thank you. And next up, I'd like to transition to Pamela Joslyn from Iowa. Pamela, take it away.
Sure, thank you. Hi, my name's Pam, and I'm from Muscatine, Iowa. We're a community about 24,000 people in southeast Iowa along the Mississippi River. And I had met a year ago, or actually almost a year and a half ago, with the community college president and trying to find a project that the students could do, a community partnership. And I thought we should focus on plastics in the community, and they're like, no, we should do organic waste. And so what I did is we are fortunate enough to have one of the few facilities in the Midwest that can basically take organic waste and then use that and so what it does is it allows that there'll be less methane going into the landfills. And methane is a large contributor to global or gases that can harm the environment. And so what we did is if you go to the next slide, please, we went to the facility that's called the MORC facility, the Muscatine Organic Recycling Center, and basically what it does, I'm going to oversimplify it, it takes that food waste, it squishes it down, and then they collect that fuel and they can use it at the digester, and it provides enough energy to run our water treatment facility. So we also looked at even the amount of heating value within natural gas and the gas that can be produced from the methane that could be harvested from the food waste. And we got data from the community and realized that, you know, back in prior to all of this, that might be enough to heat 19 homes before collecting the food waste. Now, within a month's time, that's enough to heat up 204 homes. Now, at this time, it's not heating any homes. It's just being utilized to run the water treatment facility. But it's potentially, if we had enough organic waste that was collected, we could use that to harness more energy. So one thing I did is I used the grant money to provide food waste buckets for all of the students, and they began collecting food waste in their own home. And some of them did a great job, and some of them it was challenging because it wasn't necessarily about like meeting that challenge, but it's also personal goals and getting them to change not only their habits but habits within their own family. We also surveyed the cooks and looked at within our own school community the why is there so much food waste, and they asked the cooks like how much food waste are we actually throwing away or garbage, and they realized we throw away about 30 gallon bags of food every single day. And so they calculated that out to cover about 4 football fields in a year's time. So the students created a video for their school, taught the students about the importance of organic food waste, and then they began a food waste project where we now separate all the food waste within the building, and that'll be up and going next year. The other schools are interested, and an elementary is going to participate, and the goal then is still yet to get the students to make that community-wide and possibly even some citywide collections. So that's where we're at now, and again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to help make this happen.
Thanks for sharing, Pam. I appreciated hearing about both the inquiry that your students were doing into the current food waste and then where they were doing education campaigns and work to make a difference. Thank you for that. Next up is Stacie Stecker from North Dakota. Stacie, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Like she said, I'm Stacie Stecker, and I am an English teacher in Belfield, North Dakota. I did have the privilege of teaching leadership this year, which was just a fun new challenge for me. I have a class of about 15 because we're a really small town with maybe a population of about 1,000. So one of the things that we talked about in leadership was I just found that students weren't too excited about their community and didn't have a lot of pride in themselves. So I wanted to look at how we could get involved in the community, and so did they. Their biggest goal was how could we impact the community? So that was kind of our challenge, is to learn about that correlation and support it takes between both. One of the things we focused on in leadership was just even the quote, if you can't make a wave, at least make a ripple, which they really all just said was important to them because they really did want to impact the community in any way that they could. Go ahead to the next slide. So we did some parks restorations. We had a numerous amount of projects amidst the 3 parks in our town. So the first project we did was we sanded and stained about 20 picnic tables at the local pavilion where they host meals in the summer and do different events throughout the year. The students believed that sanding and staining just gave the community a nice look, and it was one thing that they were just proud so that people could enjoy being there. I'm going to do most of the presentation through the words of my students because we did a reflection at the end, and I figured who would explain what the project meant to them and the impact it had better than them. So that's throughout my presentation, it's mostly just quotes from them. Then our second project, we stained benches, and then we put up new trash cans at different parks where we saw a need for trash cans. So one student said, what I got out of this was a sense of pride in myself that I could be a leader and help others complete a task, and pride in my classmates for taking the initiative and putting this all together. And that student was the leader. I put kind of task leaders in charge. He was a task leader for staining the benches. He'd lived in Belfield all his life, and he was really proud of that. Another student said, once we buckled down and finished it, the pride and accomplishment was amazing. People had joy on their faces when they saw that people were renewing the parks. Staining the bench brought me pride. Through this, it showed if you stick with it, keep working, your outcome will be great. Seeing the result put a spark in my eye. We did this, which was just cool. They all just felt such good accomplishments in something so simple as staining. Go ahead to the next slide. The fourth project we tackled was some tree planting. We had a new student who had just moved to us this year, and she was just so excited about the trees. It was so great to see her just thrilled about putting in trees. So she was our project leader on this one. We planted 3 trees in the area, and so her statement was, I never thought that I could have been given the opportunity to do an impactful thing for my new community. I hope this act will impact those across this school to take care of their town and learn the importance of keeping their community nice so we all can enjoy it. Go ahead to the next slide. And then our last project, but not least, the one that they were the most excited about was play libraries. So we had this idea that we had parks with a lot of open space. So we wanted to give kids something that they could do. So the concept behind these play libraries is we put a bunch of toys like volleyballs and soccer balls, kickballs, hula hoops, badmintons, anything that they could just borrow and play with at the park while they were there. Even kids commented they've already seen kids playing with them. And so that was really cool to see them do that. So we anchored it down, and they did their research to kind of see which one would fit best and all of those things, and got those up. One student said, the most important part to me is seeing the parks get used. Instead of staying inside, they can go out and play soccer, kickball. It gives them a chance to be kids. Another student said, I believe the play library will have a big impact and get kids out to move and willing to play. Not only was this fun, but having people walk by and to see their excitement in what we were doing was heartwarming. People do appreciate the little things. Next slide. And then lastly, here are just some quotes. I'll wrap it up here, but here are some quotes from all the students. I had them write that reflection, and they just talked about, things that they learned that if there's a will or the manpower, they can accomplish any goals. One student talked about how they did see the correlation between the school and the community, that both need to support each other. Another one said, they can't wait to see how the community will grow and how we can continue this. They all thought we should continue to do this every single year. So it's just really cool to see their pride. They really found that sense of pride. And lastly, the one that really stuck with me was the one at the bottom there. One student said, I think this showed everyone that when the school and the community come together, we can make a difference. And that was just the overall feeling of this project. So thank you very much for making this happen.
Oh, thank you, Stacie. I really appreciate hearing the power of your students' words, and I love that play library concept. Those are exciting to see. Thank you. Yeah. Next up, I'd like to welcome Talia Miller from Massachusetts. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm Talia Miller, and I have a unique role as the Service Learning Coordinator at Coleraine Central School in Coleraine, Massachusetts. That's the elementary school. And I just wanted to start with an overhead shot so you can kind of see where we are along the North River. Next slide. So for a few years, we've had an initiative to do more student-driven service learning projects to accomplish our learning objectives. And we've had a lot of success getting out in the community more. But one of the challenges is when the students come up with the concept and then all of a sudden you want to fund it, like it's hard to always be able to make their ideas actually happen because you don't always have the money. So right off the bat, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity and the grant funds from the Rural Schools Collaborative. It made just a huge difference. Being able to greenlight these kids' ideas was really exciting. So I'll talk about a couple small projects that we were able to accomplish this spring. Go ahead, next slide, please. So the first one, this is our kindergarten class. We had last year, we had already put in a pollinator garden. And then this year, an amazing coincidence that the property next to school was bought by someone who wanted to start a native plant nursery specifically to feed native and endangered caterpillars. So we had this amazing expert next to us. He came and taught the kindergartners about the plants and butterfly life cycle. We were able to purchase plants from him. Third graders have been learning about endangered bumblebees, so we were able to get the plants those bees needed because it's really specific, like certain creatures need a very specific plant. And so it's this cool community connection to work with him. Next slide, please. And in first grade, they had been learning about the river habitat and wanted to protect the trout that live in the river. They had a guest speaker from Trout Unlimited who taught them about the river restoration projects where they were planting trees along the river. So they wanted to support Trout Unlimited, and with the grant, we were able to buy the supplies they needed to make their own dog biscuits and sell them. We have one gas station in town, so now anyone can go to the gas station and make a donation to get these dog biscuits, so the proceeds are helping Trout Unlimited. That was a completely student design project. Next slide, please. And then first and second graders worked together to do some hands-on work in river restoration. And what was exciting about this part was we worked with two of our neighbors, private property owners along the river, and the kids were able to improve their property. And we bought the plants from the nursery next door. So in this case, the kids were learning a lot and the neighbors were getting the benefit of hopefully preventing erosion in the future. Next slide, please. So the final part of the project was the kindergartners had the idea, if we made a pollinator garden at school, maybe everyone in town could get one at their house. So kindergartners thought we should buy a plant that every kid could take home and every staff member. And with the plants, they got a piece of artwork and some information about the plants and pollinators. So again, it was just very exciting to be able to make the kids' ideas a reality. Next slide, please. So that's the projects we did. It was fun to work with such young students and help them so early on feel like they were making a difference. I went back to this picture because I wanted to show you. So the top circle is where the native plant nursery is. The two other circles are where we did our work. And you could just add so much more because the kids were working all over the town as they put the plants in their own gardens. So I just felt like with this grant, the kids' ideas were really able to come true. And I think they just felt really connected to their town. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Talia. It's exciting to hear about how you're working cross grade level, and the position to be a service learning coordinator for multiple grade levels and schools is a really wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Next up, I'd like to welcome Amy Kaufman from Missouri. Amy.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay. So I'm Amy Kaufman, and I am from West Plains, Missouri, and our school is Glenwood R8. And first, I guess I need to kind of give you a little bit of a preface that our project kind of rolled over from what we started last year. And we were also recipients of this grant last year with Bridget Larsen, who is one of my team members that we also worked with on the arena project this year. And we did a poverty unit with them last year and got them rolling on that. And that worked so well that by the time they got to the end of the year, they wanted to do more. And this is just a really quick preface. They wanted to do more. So we started out the beginning of this year connecting to our community. So the first picture on the slide where you see all of our students, that's our 7th and 8th graders, and they are sitting outside of our courthouse building because we took them on a scavenger hunt in our town, and they actually got to find all of the historic places right in town on our square and just learn about their place, things that they didn't know. So we started with that project, and that quickly moved over. We have 3 buildings on our school property that were not being used for anything other than storage. One of them held our lawnmowers and tractors and that kind of stuff. And then the other 2 really weren't being used for anything. And you're going to see if you look on the same slide here. So one of them, we decided, we were gifted these by our principal, and he decided that we would be able to use them how we wanted to. So we told the kids that we had these buildings and what did they want to do with them? Well, going over from their poverty unit, they saw a need in our school community also, but mainly our school community, of our students not having enough food. So the idea was to create a greenhouse. So we have one building that they decided they wanted to make the greenhouse. And then we have the building on the bottom of that slide it's actually an old storage cooler type, like it came off of a truck or something. I'm not really sure how it ended up there, but so they decided that that was going to be a chicken coop, and they have started, and I will show you on the next couple slides what they have done with that. That way we would have plants to send home that students can continue growing, and we would have eggs from the chickens that they could also send home with students that needed extra food. So skipping over to the next, and I'll go back to the third one, but skipping over, this is showing them working on the chicken coop, and the one group of girls with their hands all dirty, they actually scraped all of the old paint and nasties off of it. The roof has to be redone. They've started the painting. Everything got halted at the end of the year because we ran out of time. So this is definitely a project that is going to continue over into this fall and hopefully wrap that up before we end up in bad weather. So if you could go to the next slide for me, Leslie. So on this one, this is showing, we had Savannah actually got to come down and visit, and I've talked to her quite a few times. We had some issues go on with our greenhouse that didn't work out so well for us this year. We had a small greenhouse, and we've had lots of weather conditions here in Missouri this year that didn't work with us. So in the first 2 slides, you see the students, they started out planting in solo cups, and we started out with heirloom seeds. And I've got to wrap up because I'm taking too much time. So the long story short here is the greenhouse will continue over into next year. But on the last 2 pictures of this slide, the students also at the end of the year decided that that area is going to be an area where they can come right outside a door, and that's going to be their lunch area if they would like to come outside and sit. They've started cleaning it up, restoring different things in there. They're going to plant bushes over in one of the corners. Just a really neat place for them to be their own. And did I have any more slides, Leslie? I don't know if I had another one. Okay. And I don't have time. Our students got to present to Melville School in St. Louis, and they actually came down to visit us. And this was the big deciding on us as teachers that we were doing what was right for our students, because when they presented to the Melville teachers and administrators, they knew exactly what they were talking about and proved to us that they were in the right spot and knew exactly what needed to be done for this project. So that was our celebration. On the one side, they got ice cream sundaes and everything was great. So they were happy with that, but they did an excellent job. And I thank everyone for this opportunity to be able to do this with our students. Thank you, Leslie.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I think your project and how it spanned across years is just, I mean, it's true to life. Things don't end in May as the school year ends. And I appreciate those connections and how you're following through with the students too. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
And I'd like to welcome up Will Miller for our final presentation. Will from Massachusetts, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to spend a little bit of time sharing about a project that we worked on at the Academy at Charlemont, which is a independent day school in Charlemont, Massachusetts, right along the Deerfield River. We decided this year that we wanted to continue working towards building a restorative agricultural program on our campus. We have some school gardens, and many students in various classes and councils have expressed an interest in growing more food on campus. We wanted to make it fun, and one of the things that we've been exploring through past projects is building very large geodesic domes. And if you don't know what a geodesic dome is, it's basically a sort of partial sphere made up of triangles. And these can get, they're very sort of structurally resilient things, and they can get pretty big. And so the students got pretty excited this year to build. This is actually the second large geodesic dome that we have on our campus. And what we decided to do was use the dome as a trellis to support some crops, some corn, beans, and squash that were growing in a Three Sisters garden that's incorporated in the dome space itself. So as you can see here, the students started off by using scale models. A parent, Academy parent, Noah Grunberg, came, he's an architect, and was able to help us with some surveying skills and equipment to kind of like create the site for the dome, and then also figure out a way to make a scale model. So what you're seeing here is some students in the geometry class working on a 1/12 scale model of the dome. So next slide, please. And as you can see throughout the presentation, there are some quotes from students reflecting on the impact of the project. So after we designed the dome, we started gathering materials to build it. We have a forest spot on our campus, and one of the species that grows there is black birch. If you have any kind of experience with trees, you know that black birch is, it's a wind-blown tree, so it grows pretty quickly and spreads really fast. It's a fairly resilient species, and we have a lot of it on campus. Also, as you peel the bark off of this tree, which we did in order to kind of preserve the wood and make it last longer, it gives off a really beautiful aroma of root beer. So the students peeled all of the sticks. These are cut from small saplings in a large grove of black birch on campus. They peeled all the sticks by hand, measured and cut them to within 2 millimeters of the desired length. And then on several days throughout the spring, when the weather was cooperating, we were able to assemble the dome as kind of a team with the environmental science class. So it was a collaboration here between two subjects for a total, I think, of somewhere around 30 students involved. So next slide, please. On this slide, you'll be able to see a time lapse of the dome, the very last level of the dome being assembled, and then a big group of students and faculty moving the dome into place on the berm right in our courtyard here out front of the school. So this was just a really fun and kind of inspiring project to work with a big structure like this and to kind of see it go from a model to a large scale structure. And on the last, after this video, you'll be able to see in the last page, the garden that we built underneath the dome. And the idea is that over time, the plants that are planted in that garden will use the dome to kind of trellis up and grow over and create kind of like a green gathering space. And there's a little area in the center where students can sit and read a book or just relax and talk. It was a very fun project and I think very rewarding for the students. If you've had a chance to read any of these quotes, you'll see that it had a big impact on them. I think both kind of in a spiritual community sense and also as well as just the skills and knowledge that they gathered from working on it. I'm really super grateful to Noah Grimberg for helping out with this and also to Raphael Kelman, who is the art teacher at the Academy at Charlemont and has been just a wonderful help and has given generously of his time and energy and expertise to the project. So grateful to everybody who made this possible and to the Rural Schools Collaborative for supporting us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Will. That was such a treat to see the video of your students moving it and putting it together. Thanks for including that, and thanks for all the work you're doing as well. Will was our final presentation, and I'd like to invite everyone now to just take a moment to unmute yourselves, and we want to share some gratitude and celebration for these fellows. So unmute yourself, and we'll give a couple claps, some whoops, and just sharing a little bit of appreciation. All right. Woohoo!
Well done.
Nice work.
So inspiring.
Very, very inspiring. Thank you all. And Savannah, I'll turn it to you next.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. Thank you so much for your facilitation today. And we're so appreciative of you and our partnership with the Teton Science Schools and again, your time today. So thank you, Leslie. This will now conclude our public facing side of our Celebration of Learning event this afternoon. But first, I'd like to just offer one last sincere thank you to our amazing Grants in Place Godsil Fellows we just heard from. Thank you for being here this afternoon and sharing your projects with us today. It's truly been such an honor to work so closely with you all this spring and now be able to hear your projects at large and your summaries. It's just clearly you had such an impact on your students and your communities, and that's just what place-based education is at its core. So thank you. Thank you for taking on an additional project during another pandemic school year and being amazing rural teachers that you are. So we're so proud of our fellows this year. Thank you to Mark and Celia Godsil for their efforts and dedication to place-based education in rural communities and allowing us to make this possible. I want to wish our VIPs, board members, selection committee members, partners, friends, and fellows one last thank you. You all are free to hop off and enjoy your afternoon and weekend. Fellows, if you'll please still stay on the Zoom for next steps. Thank you all again for your time, and one last round of applause for our fellows. Thank you so much.
Awesome.